I wasn't afraid when I heard footsteps outside my tent. That happens sometimes when you camp deep in the woods. Animals move around at night. Branches snap. Leaves crunch on. What scared me was when the footsteps stopped. Not 10 feet away. Not at the edge of the campsite. They stopped right beside my head, and whoever it was never made another sound. Story 1. I've always enjoyed camping alone, not because I hate people, but because the quiet does something to my head. Out there, away from cities and cell signals, everything feels simpler, cleaner. It's just you, the forest, and your thoughts. This happened about 3 years ago, in late October. I drove out to a national forest in northern Washington, the kind of place where the trees are tall enough to block out the sky, and the roads get narrower the deeper you go. By the time I parked my truck, there was no signal on my phone. That didn't bother me. I expected it. I hiked about 2 miles in before setting up camp, far enough that no one would casually wander through, but close enough to the trail that I wouldn't get lost. The weather was cold, but manageable. No rain, no wind, just that heavy, quiet stillness you only get in dense forests. I pitched my tent, set up a small fire pit, and cooked dinner as the sun went down. Everything felt normal, comfortable. Even if I'm being honest, that might be why I didn't notice the first warning sign. Around 8 p.m., I heard something move behind the trees. It wasn't loud, just the sound of footsteps brushing through dry leaves. I paused, listening. Then I heard it again. Slow, measured, too steady to be a deer. I remember smiling to myself, thinking it was probably another camper passing through, maybe someone who didn't realize how deep they were. So I called out. "Hey!" I said. "Just so you know, I'm camping here." My voice echoed more than I expected. No response. I waited a few seconds, then went back to what I was doing. The footsteps stopped, and the forest returned to silence. At the time, I didn't think anything of it. Primera, Sköldhab. By 10 p.m., the temperature had dropped sharply. I put out the fire, zipped myself into my sleeping bag, and turned off my headlamp. The forest went completely dark. That's when I realized how quiet it really was. No insects, no wind, no distant animal calls. Just nothing. I lay there, staring at the fabric of my tent, listening to my own breathing. That's when I heard it again. Footsteps. Closer this time. Slow. Careful. Like whoever or whatever it was didn't want to be heard. I held my breath. The footsteps circled my tent. Not fast. Not rushed. One full circle. Then another. I wanted to believe it was an animal. But animals don't move like that. They don't circle. They don't inspect. After the second loop, the footsteps stopped, right near the back of my tent. So close, I could hear the weight shifting. A soft crunch. A pause. I whispered. "Hello?" Nothing. No movement. No breathing. No reply. Minutes passed. I told myself I was imagining it. That fear was filling in the gaps. Eventually, exhaustion took over, and I drifted into a light, uneasy sleep. I don't know how long I was asleep when something touched my tent. Not a scrape. Not a claw. A hand, pressing gently against the fabric. I froze. The hand stayed there, perfectly still. Then it slid downward, slowly. Like whoever was outside wanted me to know they were there. I couldn't move. Couldn't speak. I lay there, staring, waiting for the tent zipper to move, but it didn't. After a few seconds, the pressure disappeared. I listened. Footsteps again. This time, walking away. I didn't sleep after that. I stayed awake until the first hint of light crept through the trees. When morning came, I crawled out of my tent, my body stiff and shaking. That's when I saw the footprints. Bare footprints. Human. They were all around my campsite, around the fire pit, around my tent, and right behind where my head had been. 2 footprints stood side by side, as if someone had been standing there for a long time, watching, What still haunts me isn't that someone was there. It's that they never tried to take anything, never spoke, never made themselves known. They just watched and left. I packed up immediately and hiked back without stopping once. I've gone camping since then, but never alone, and never that deep into the woods again. Story 2. I didn't plan on camping that night. That's the part that still bothers me the most. If I had planned it, I might have chosen a different place. A safer place. Or maybe I wouldn't have gone at all. I was driving back from a work trip in Colorado when my car started acting up. Nothing dramatic at first, just a warning light, then a strange knocking sound. By the time I pulled over, it was already getting dark. There was no signal on my phone. The road I was on hadn't seen another car in at least an hour. I had camping gear in my trunk. I always did. So I did the only thing that made sense. I drove a little farther down a dirt road, parked near a tree line, and decided to wait until morning. The forest there felt wrong. I can't explain it any better than that. The trees were too close together, their branches twisting inward, like they were leaning in to listen. Even before I stepped out of the car, I felt watched. I told myself it was just nerves. I set up my tent quickly, keeping my flashlight pointed outward, scanning the woods again and again. Every shadow felt like it was moving. By the time I finished, the forest was completely dark. I ate a protein bar, zipped myself into the tent, and locked my car from inside with the key fob. The click echoed louder than it should have. For a while, nothing happened. I started to relax. That's when I heard the whistling. It was faint at first, soft, almost melodic. I thought it was the wind until I realized something. There was no wind. The whistling stopped. Then it started again. Closer. It wasn't a tune I recognized, just a series of uneven notes, rising and falling, like someone testing different sounds. I sat up slowly, my heart pounding. "Hello?" I called out. The whistling stopped immediately. Silence rushed back in, thick and heavy. Minutes passed. They didn't circle my tent like before. They walked straight toward it. Then they stopped, right in front of the entrance. I could see the shadow through the tent fabric. Tall, thin, perfectly still. I held my breath, waiting for them to speak. They didn't. Instead, the shadow leaned forward, close enough that I could see the outline of a head, tilted slightly to one side, like it was studying me. Then came the whisper, not loud, barely more than air moving. "I know you're awake." My body went cold. I didn't respond. The whisper came again, closer this time. "You shouldn't be here." I squeezed my eyes shut, praying this was some kind of hallucination. Lack of sleep, stress, fear. But then I heard something unzip. Not my tent, my car, the unmistakable sound of a door opening. Panic surged through me. I lunged forward, grabbing my flashlight, and shouted, "Get away from my car." The shadow outside my tent didn't move. Instead, it straightened up and smiled. I know it smiled because I could see the shape of it through the fabric. Too wide, too stretched. Then it stepped back and disappeared into the darkness. I didn't sleep at all that night. Every sound made me flinch. Every shadow felt closer than it should have been. When dawn finally came, I rushed to my car. The driver's door was open. The inside was untouched. Nothing stolen. Nothing moved, except for one thing. Written in the dust on the windshield were 4 words. "I warned you once. I don't camp anymore, and whenever I hear whistling at night, even in the city, I don't look for the source, because part of me is still afraid that it's looking for me." Story 3. Used to think people exaggerated camping horror stories. Whispers in the woods, strange figures between trees, unexplained noises at night. I always assumed fear filled in the blanks. That changed during a weekend trip I took with my younger brother. We were camping in a remote part of Oregon, miles away from the nearest town. No campsites, no markers, just forest. The kind of place where If something went wrong, no one would hear you. We arrived just before sunset and set up camp near a dried riverbed. The area was quiet, almost unnaturally so. My brother joked about it at first. "Feels like one of those places people disappear," he said, laughing. I remember telling him to shut up. That was the first night. Nothing happened. No strange sounds. No movement. No fear. Almost disappointing. The second night was different. Around midnight, I woke up to the sound of breathing. Not my own. It was slow. Controlled. Too steady to be an animal. I opened my eyes and stared into the darkness of the tent. The breathing was coming from outside, right near my brother's side. I gently whispered his name. No response. The breathing stopped. Then, a voice low. "Come. Don't move." Every muscle in my body locked up. The voice wasn't loud, but it was clear. Too clear. I could hear the shape of the words. I felt the tent shift slightly, like someone had leaned closer. The voice spoke again. "I can see you." I reached for my phone, praying for even a single bar of signal. Nothing. The zipper of the tent moved. Just an inch. Then stopped. My brother suddenly gasped, sucking in air like he'd been holding his breath. "Do you see him?" he whispered. I didn't answer. Because I did. Through the small opening in the tent, I could see an eye. Wide. Unblinking. Too close. I don't remember screaming, but I know I did. The next few moments blurred together. The tent ripped open. The flashlight fell. My brother grabbed my arm, and then nothing. Silence. No footsteps. No breathing. Just us. Shaking. Alone in the dark. At dawn, we packed up without saying a word and left. Neither of us talked about it on the drive home. Weeks passed. Then months. Eventually, I convinced myself it was some kind of shared nightmare. Fear, feeding on fear. Until one night, my brother called me. He sounded terrified. He said he was camping again. Alone. He said he could hear breathing outside his tent. I told him to leave immediately. He didn't answer. That was the last time I ever heard his voice. They found his campsite 3 days later. The tent was untouched. No signs of a struggle. No footprints. No blood. Just one thing. Scratched into the dirt beside the tent were the words, "I see you." I haven't been camping since. Sometimes, late at night, when the house is quiet, I hear breathing outside my bedroom door. Slow. Patient. Waiting.